Well, first of all, let me thank you, the Guide Association, for obviously this opportunity, the invitation, and so on. We're a member, and we're very happy with remaining so. Also, would like to point out that well, also to thank you for having included me in such a distinguished panel. It was very interesting. All of the presentations were quite interesting. Well, starting from Michael Moore, of course, and well, it's interesting because being in this panel, it's funny how departing from different points or different standpoints, one can reach some similar conclusions, and probably you'll see that. Well, I didn't knew George Otte. We didn't knew each other, and probably some of our conclusions can be quite similar. Well, although we don't feel, I mean, we don't. Probably we're not giving the same significant meaning to the term local. Anyway, there are some similarities. Also, I have to point out from the start that it's a difficult thing to be the last one, because everyone is now starting to think about lunch, and also myself.
There are two more.
So and so I have to be to speed it up, and also. Well, George finished his presentation by proposing, submitting the idea that there is a third generation in distance learning. Well, I fully agree with that. But in this panel, I believe that we can also speak about several generations. In obviously, because when Michael was making his presentation, and he confessed to us that he was starting. I mean, from 1963, he was already in Africa doing distance learning. I started to remember that I was only born in '65, so there's there's something here that has to be. I mean, we are from different generations, of course. Well, getting to the point. Also, prior to start my presentation, I need to make well to give you an idea of how this reflection, I mean, could, in a way, the context of this reflection. Presently in Portugal, there is, I mean, the Ministry of Higher Education has decided to design, to produce a bill, a law, a regulation, well, a legislation on distance learning. It's the first time. As you know, it's not very common, although there are countries, I mean, for instance, Brazil, which already has such a law. And in that context, obviously a big discussion has arisen on what is distance learning and how a distance learning system should be organized. Well, as Michael already gave you an hint from the Portuguese Open University that till now acted almost as it wasn't. I mean, it hasn't the exclusivity of the system, but it was almost hegemonic in the sense that over 95% of all distance learning courses are delivered by my university. And one can ask, well, what happened really for the government started to feel the need to regulate the system in such a way, and what are the feelings from the other universities? Well, what happened was that since there is, I mean, it has been, I mean, this technological revolution, in a way, has happened. It has become, as George also pointed out, has become much easier for traditional higher education institutions to start distance learning operations. It became much more easy because in the past, as you know, you had to build a big infrastructure to train personnel and so on. staff and so on. Now it became much more easy, and it created the impression, the idea, that it's too easy, and everyone can really do distance learning, which is a common mistake, as you already know. Anyway, a terrible mistake, but people really find it almost as, as something of fairly good sense. And so, as you also know, every university, higher education institution in Europe is finding, and not just in Europe, a shortage of students. Student enrollments are diminishing, although the population that could access higher education is enlarging. So there is that kind of phenomenon, already pointed out by George. And so universities find the need to find students. And finding students, for them, it became crucial to reach for them, because students feel that conventional higher education is no longer attractive. Partly because they get into, life in that sense on a younger age, let's call it like that, but also because the level of dropout or stopout, as George has pointed out, is increasing. On the other hand, in terms of access, there isn't any shortage of access. For instance, in Portugal, there are as many as 15 public universities, state-run universities. For a country of 10 million inhabitants, it's a lot. So it's not the problem of access, in terms of access, physical access. It's a problem of access in terms of time. So people start to get jobs and so on, and don't have time to go to classes. And so the combination of these two phenomena has created a movement in both senses, in both ways, from the university to the students, and from the students to the university, that has really pointed out to the government that there is a need for distance learning, and there is a need for the openness of the system in that sense. So, from that standpoint, our university, my university, obviously has begun to think again. Well, what is really its role in the system? And basically, the main conclusion is a return to the basics. That is, what is really a distance learning, what is really open learning. And that has obviously, bearing in mind what we have today, to enter the field of cross-country education, and obviously cross-cultural education. So I must apologize for this introduction, but it was in a way just to make you understand how my reflection, from what my reflection started. Well, so
you can use the mouse.
Okay.
Yes, or the,
okay. Well, so when we start to think about cross-country or cross-border, it's more correctly. So, cross-border education. First of all, we have to think that there is various types and models that currently can be detected. First of all, there is student mobility. We can, in my view, we can differentiate these three types of cross-border education. Student mobility, both in terms of physical mobility and also virtual mobility, which is the one that interests us the most, in the sense that I've explained there. Students may enroll in courses or programs delivered by higher education institutions located not in their home countries. Program mobility, which has all of those possibilities. Franchising, there's a trend in franchising, training, double or joint degrees, articulation between graduations and so on, validation of degrees and so on. and obviously the virtual distance delivery model, in the sense that obviously one can enroll in a course, in a program. At this stage, when anyone of us can enroll in a course from the Open University of Malaysia or whatever, and the programs can be obviously exchanged between the universities. Also, there is the issue of provider mobility, in the sense that credits and qualifications can be awarded by a branch campus. There are several at this stage. Independent foreign higher education institutions that can work in conjunction, acquisition of or merger of a foreign higher education institution, besides the traditional study centers, teaching sites, or affiliations, or international networks, as is as well. For instance, our university has students all over the world. Some of them use study centers abroad. Some others, we also have a branch, not a branch, but a university in Asia that is affiliated to us. So there's also, in the same university, several models can coexist. Anyway, obviously, what I'm focus on will be on virtual student mobility, of course. Obviously, this rapidly increasing access to a variety of virtual courses and programs has created a new scenario, and that scenario, in a way, also needs, in my view, to some regulation being issued, by international regulation being issued, because at this stage, every university can really offer, can deliver courses and programs to everyone in the world without having much regulation on quality standards and several issues that you already know. So I submit these several principles that, in a way, other principles that have been designed by, are present in the declaration, in the 2005 declaration of the International Association of Universities. The declaration has the title "Sharing Quality Higher Education Across Borders," a statement on behalf of higher education institutions worldwide, and, as you know, was produced in the aftermath of the GATT agreements. And I believe that these are principles, are very sound principles for the definition of good practices in cross-border provision of education. First of all, cross-border higher education should strive to contribute to the broader economic, social, and cultural well-being of communities. This obviously is quite important. Another one, cross-border education can flow in many different directions and take place in a variety of contexts. However, it should strengthen developing countries' higher education capacity in order to promote global. In addition to providing disciplinary and professional expertise, cross-border higher education should strive to instill in learners the critical thinking that underpins responsible citizenship at the local, national, and global levels. Also, cross-border higher education should not only be accessible to students who can afford to pay, but also to qualified students with financial needs. Cross-border higher education should meet the same high standards of academic and organizational quality, no matter where it is delivered. Cross-border higher education should be accountable to the public, students, and governments. Cross-border higher education should expand the opportunities for international mobility of faculty, researchers, and students. Higher education institutions and other providers of cross-border higher education should provide clear and full information to students and external stakeholders about the education they provide. To these, I believe we can also join two other principles that derive from the Joint Declaration on Higher Education and the General Agreement on Trade Services that was also established it was prior to the IAU declaration. So these two are: higher education exists to serve the public interest and is not a commodity. That is quite important because, as you know, in the GATS agreement discussion, this was a very important issue for the for the universities, basically. Education exports must complement, not undermine, the efforts of developing countries to develop and enhance their own domestic higher education systems. Well, this, of course, has to be, this is what I would call a set of principles that we should in a way, ground any kind of approach to the international market or to the global market from a conscientious higher education institution. Also, anyway, being, as you have pointed out in the title of my presentation, I derive my reflection from the standpoint of a Portuguese Open University, that is, from a European university. And being a European university, we are included in the European higher education area, which was probably the first real attempt to create a regulated common space in terms of higher education, cross-border higher education. And for that, this was it was a slide that was also linked with the GATS agreement. So these are the 4 modes of classification of service of higher education services according to the GATS: cross-border supply, consumption abroad, commercial presence, and presence of natural persons. As you know, this is all related to the other principles. So, and this, in a way, the success, I would say that at this point we can already say that the European higher education area is a success, was based in these 5 tools. I would say it's tools, I would name it tools. Obviously, as you know, the Bologna process or the Bologna philosophy rests on the assumption there should be a balance between general and specialized type of training, an increased flexibility of training, and the promotion of professional mobility, in the sense that it relates to what already said before about economical and social needs for online learning at this stage. From these 3 principles, what the Bologna process intended to promote employability, widen students' professional choices, and foster lifelong learning by using these tools: the establishment of standard training profiles and competencies based on learning outcomes, the reorganization and harmonization of curricula, the focusing of teaching on student learning needs, the ECTS, the European Credit Transfer System, the implementation of the diploma supplement, and the further development of programs, quality evaluation, and accreditation by the means of, as you know, creating a math evaluation European agency. I mean, these tools, as I see it, are the grounds for the success of the European higher education area. And being so, if we intend to regulate, or if we should attempt to regulate in terms of global delivery of courses or programs, I believe that following the experience of the European higher education area, that experience, these 4 things have to be faced. I mean, the first difficulty we have, and has to be solved, is the large variation in legislation and the fact that there are too many different organizational models in the world, of course. There is a lack of a common measurement system regarding student workload, that is the European ECTS. Obviously, the European ECTS could be expanded to also to be acknowledged by different countries and continental organizations. But there should be this common measurement system in order to foster exchange. Also, the lack of shared criteria and methodology for course and program accreditation, that is obviously an important issue. And also the lack of a common tool for student competency certification, and the establishment of standard training profiles and competencies based on learning outcomes. Well, in my view, most probably, many continental organizations must probably, we already know there are some moves from Canada, Australia, also Southern America, countries from South America, and others, and probably from Africa as well. There is a trend in order to use the European higher education area tools and experience as a kind of a platform to ground and to design new regulation, and to expand it in a way that it could be as a kind of a common platform for use worldwide. And in that sense, Europe, of course, and European higher education institutions have that advantage and could use that advantage. Anyway, we should be very cautious in not promoting the idea that Europe should be expansionistic in this sense. And also, in several of the examples we know, the successful examples, as Phoenix Online that has been already mentioned, and others from the United States, most commonly there is what happens really is that a country, a national system, exports, delivers worldwide its own organizational model, its own system, its own pedagogical system, and so on, in such a way that it does not, it's not compatible with the variety, the differences in cultural, in national legislation, in national social systems, and so on. And that should obviously be avoided when European universities, and in this case the Portuguese universities, are trying to deliver worldwide their courses. Obviously, there is, to shorten up, and we can have a discussion afterwards, there is some good examples of what I mean. For instance, when we talk about the OER, the open educational resources and other resources of this kind, even Second Life and so on, they basically they have some difficulty in coping with cultural variation. And so a different kind of university in that sense has to be developed, a different kind of university idea in that sense has to be developed in order to cope with a different kind of reality. As it was pointed out previously, distance learning can have a very important role in this, in the sense that distance learning has evolved as a notion to overcome the original idea of physical distance to include other kinds of distances in relation to the open educational notion. So today, distance learning is a way to cope with every kind of distance, being social distance, also obviously physical distance, but cultural distance, and so on. So this very same notion of distance should be rethinked about, and the organizations, the higher education institutions that deal with distance learning, have to rethink them itself in that sense. What I offer as probably an example is what we have done in our university. Ever since, we used to use, in that sense, a pedagogical model that was typically industrial-like, following in the sense of the Autocritus definition, and industrial-like delivery, second generation delivery model, based on the multimedia package, tutoring, and so on. what we've managed with that was that we could, I mean, deliver. We had students from several countries. I mean, foreign students were mainly from African Portuguese-speaking countries. But anyway, this delivery model had one shortage. That was obviously it lacked interaction. I mean, it had interaction, but it lacked a good quality interaction. Obviously, it lacked student-student interaction, of course, and the student-tutor interaction was not very developed. And that presented us a problem in dealing with cross-cultural education, because of course you have to understand quite well what is the context of the student, and if you don't understand it quite well, you can deliver very good quality materials. They can obviously make a good learning process. I mean, we could assume that they do, but in fact there isn't happening a good educational experience. When we changed from that model, from that pedagogical model to an entirely virtual pedagogical model, what we've obviously this slide says it all. I mean, when we have over 20% of our student population from foreign countries, but our own staff is mainly Portuguese, we have cultural problems, cultural understanding problems. In that sense, when we've changed our pedagogical system, our pedagogical model to an entirely virtual one, we've designed that pedagogical model from a collaborative work standpoint. So it is basically it is based on the setting out of small communities of learning, and that are limited in size, and each one has a specific tutor. Well, the tutor can have 5 minutes. Well, I'll be brief. And so, in that sense, we can, of course, control much better that relationship between. Basically, now the student-to-student interaction has increased a lot. It has attained very high levels, not only of communication but of transaction in that sense, but also the student-to-tutor interaction was improved, but because we could now start to think of recruiting tutors from different countries, from foreign countries, because there was not any need for a physical presence in the university. That, of course, will make us obtain quite good results, because the dropout rate has decreased dramatically. There is now we have the ability to understand the difference between dropout and stopout, as George has pointed out, because the students themselves report to us, well, I'm just leaving the course, this course, I'm not leaving the program because I don't have time to have to do the 3 or 4 courses that I've enrolled in, but I'm just making these 2, but I'm going I'm not dropping out from the program. And so we can have a much more closer rapport and relationship with the students. And also, in that sense, the perception of quality by the students and by the teachers have increased dramatically. Also, because the teachers had to enroll in a training course that applied the same pedagogical model, every tutor and every student and every teacher understands perfectly what is the experience that the students have, and so can understand better in terms of time management and so on. And so that perception of quality has increased a lot. Well, being this kind of scheme can help us to, I mean, in a way, to reach for Badley's suggestion of perhaps what we need is a succinct model of good university teaching, which powerfully conveys the main requirements for good teaching virtually anywhere, which includes, of course, a built-in respect for diversity and otherness. And that has to be based on community collaborative work communities, and so learning communities, in this case, virtual learning communities. So in this sense, to every University of Berkeley student is taken as a singular student. Each student, although subject to the same work program, is a member of a specific learning community, and each of these communities can and should incorporate the set of cultural values that structures the different local contexts of each work group. In this sense, in learning, culture still and will continue to matter, because we should be talking about learning cultures. And in that sense, I still have some 2 minutes? Well,
What, 2 minutes? Or?
yeah, 2 minutes. It's just to wrap it up. So the idea that I've submitted to you is that when globalizing universities, we should use a notion of multi-localizing teaching and learning, in the sense that multi-localizing teaching, in the sense that the university or the higher education institution should consider itself as a combined, in that sense, a complex of multi-communities of teaching, in that sense. And so it should include and should incorporate in those communities the sense of value of cultural localization that is needed for a good learning experience. And on the otherwise, for learners, they should also be awarded the possibility of building their own local community. When I'm using the term local in that sense, I should also point out that there is a slight difference from the definition that George used. I'm not using local as physically local, but local in the sense that when you build a virtual community, you build a rapport, a relationship between a number of people. Students in this case, but not just the students and tutors. And so this becomes a new home ground, a new local for you to evolve, to work, to live, and so on. And so that's in that sense that I'm using the term local, and in that sense that I mean suggesting the idea that globalization should be obviously grounded in this notion of multi-localization. Well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.